Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. I'm joined this evening by Executive Deputy Chief Brian Riley from the Fairfax County Police Department, and I'm joined by Assistant Special Agent in Charge Palmer from the ATF. The ATF is a steady, constant partner with the Fairfax County Police Department, and we are pleased to have the assistance of the ATF and just really honored to have Assistant Special Agent in Charge Palmer here with us as we continue this investigation. Chief Riley is going to go into some details, but I'll say this much. The officer-involved shooting that we're going to describe to you this evening involves a gunman who has been convicted of many, many felonies throughout his 37-year life. We're not yet naming him because we have to make next of kin notifications, but it's safe to say that this 37-year-old gunman is very well known to the criminal justice system. He lives here in Fairfax County. We encountered him just a few days ago and obtained arrest warrants for him after he discharged a firearm in his home that was occupied by family members and otherwise committed crimes just a couple days ago. Our fugitive team was working with our Summer Crime Initiative patrol officers here at Springfield Town Center. They received information that Chief Riley will go into that our gunman was going to be here in the parking lot. They located him. They located him in his car. Our police officers, 3 of our police officers, confronted this gunman. The gunman produced a firearm. I've reviewed the body-worn camera footage. All 3 of our Fairfax County police officers were wearing their body-worn cameras. All 3 of our police officers were in full uniform, and they told our gunman at least 20 times to drop his gun. And I'll pause and say that again. Our 3 Fairfax County police officers told our gunman at least 20 times to drop his gun. He didn't. I don't know why he didn't. Our officers discharged their firearms. 2 of the 3 officers fired, and our gunman was later pronounced dead at a local hospital. This is an investigation that will be run out of our Major Crimes Bureau and will include our Internal Affairs Bureau. It will be thorough and complete. None of our police officers are injured. They're doing exactly what I and what we expect them to do. They're out here in the community. They're out here at a busy shopping center. They're working collaboratively with our detectives to find a convicted felon, a 37-year-old convicted felon who's wanted on serious charges stemming from a Sunday night incident. They located him, doing their job again. I'm proud of their efforts, and this investigation will continue. I'll turn it over to Chief Riley for some additional details, and then we'll stand ready to take questions. I do have this, and you may not be able to make it out very well, but this is the recovered semi-automatic pistol that we recovered from our scene. And I'll only describe it right now as a semi-automatic pistol. Our gunman was armed with this firearm, and we have recovered it from the scene. So I'll turn it over to Chief Riley for some additional remarks. Thank you.
So this afternoon at right about 4:30, our fugitive warrant squad was in the process of tracking our 37-year-old gunman due to the fact that Sunday afternoon he stole a handgun from a family member of his here in Fairfax County, fired that weapon inside of their house, and then fled on foot. Our patrol officers that day on Sunday responded out there, and ultimately we received a warrant for his arrest for the theft of the handgun, the discharge of the firearm, and then he fled the scene. So since Sunday, our fugitive warrant squad has been tracking this 37-year-old gunman. Today, they received information that he was here in the area. They then got on the radio and on telephone to our officers that were working the Summer Crime Initiative that he was in the area. They gave a lookout for him, a picture, and a lookout for the vehicle that he was operating. Our Summer Crime Initiative officers came into the parking lot here, saw the vehicle, saw the gunman, at which point the gunman saw their vehicle and jumped back into his car. 3 officers were at that point by themselves here. They got out, time and distance, approached the vehicle and started to give him commands to show them his hands. During that time, as the chief mentioned, they said to him, "Show me your hands," and dropped the gun at least 20 times. At least one of the officers yelled out to the other officers that he could see a gun in his hand. At that point, they continued to tell him to drop the weapon. A short time later, after he didn't drop the weapon, our officers discharged, 2 out of the 3 officers discharged their firearms, striking the 37-year-old gunman. A short time after that, they were able to smash out a window because his doors were locked, and they pulled the gunman out of the car and rendered aid immediately to him. At that point, the fire department came in and transported him to a local hospital, and he was pronounced deceased. Inside the vehicle, as the chief just showed you the picture, we did recover a gun inside of the vehicle. We presume that is going to be the gun that our officers saw. We now have all of our officers and witness officers back at our Major Crimes Bureau, and we are doing interviews to get everybody to see what all took place and what they saw during this incident. Any questions for me?
Can you explain where in the parking lot this all took place and if others who were in the area maybe were in danger at any time?
So it's about 40 yards behind me in the parking lot. He was parked in a parking spot. They did a great job of very loudly announcing themselves and announcing why they were there and telling him to drop the weapon. I've seen the body-worn camera. I did not see anybody behind or in front of where the officers were outside of the gunman. So I don't believe anybody else was in any kind of danger during this incident.
You said he was inside the car. Was he pointing a gun at the officers from inside the car with the windows down?
So the windows were up in the vehicle. And on the body-worn camera, we can hear at least one officer yell out after a couple seconds, "He's got a gun." So we know the officer on the scene could see the gun. On the body-worn camera, we're still going to go through it very closely to see if we can ever see it. But officers yelled that out, and we have found a gun in the car.
But at this point, you can't say if he was necessarily aiming at the officers.
I don't know that as of this point, but the investigation, as you know, is still going on. So.
Is there any indication that he fired at officers, and is there any indication that he said anything to the officers in response to their commands?
So on the body-worn camera, I don't see that. However, we are going to do a search warrant on the vehicle to see if there's any kind of evidence inside of any kind of gunshots that he may have done as well.
Did he say anything to the officers in response? Is there any indications might be just like suicide by police or anything like that? Did he say anything to the officers?
Yeah, I can't go into that. I don't know. I just know that they gave a lot of commands to him to show his hands and drop the gun over and over again, and he didn't do that.
Did something happen that caused the officers to fire or sudden movement, anything along those lines?
So he never dropped the gun, is what I will presume. But we're gonna figure all that out during interviews with the officers and body-worn camera and in-car video from the vehicles.
Do you know why he was here? I mean, you guys had intelligence that he was going to be at the mall.
Right, yeah, we developed intelligence that he was going to be here. I don't know why he was here. That's all I can say to that, but we knew he was in this area.
Do you have any idea how many shots were fired?
I don't, but that's part of our investigation. We're going to go back and do a count round on our officers' guns, and we'll establish that, but at this point, I do not know.
Was he by himself?
Yes, he was by himself in the vehicle.
Did they block the vehicle in?
So we did. We had 2 vehicles as they identified the car, and they recognized him in the driver's seat. 2 of our vehicles came into the front, did not make contact with him, and parked in front of his car.
He had no way to exit behind.
No, he was wanted on felony charges, so he could.
He was blocked by a non-police vehicle, and then police came in front of
Correct.
What car was he driving?
It's a Volvo.
You say you had several felonies. Anything involving violence against officers or any other gun or violence charge?
Yeah, there was a previous handgun charge that he was convicted of, that I've been told.
Possession or?
I don't know the whole background of it, but I do know he was convicted of a handgun charge.
You guys plan to release the body cam?
We do, yes, we do. Always within, and the chief can talk to that. Oh, did it also.
Thanks, Chief Riley. Like we've been doing for the past year now, we have a sharing of information transparency policy. Within 30 days at the very most, we will again share body camera footage with the community and with the local media. But I do also want to add that Springfield Town Center is open. There is no continuing threat, and there are no outstanding suspects or additional gunmen.
This is obviously a little different than what happened at since about 2 weeks ago, but it's yet another gun-related incident, a very popular one. Virginia, how concerned are you?
Well, I think we're all, whether you live in Fairfax County or anywhere in America, concerned about firearm violence anywhere, but particularly public spaces. A lot of folks gather here. And again, we're going into another holiday weekend. And at the other location you mentioned, that was another 3-day Father's Day weekend. So we like every other jurisdiction in the National Capital Region, remain concerned about the prevalence of firearms in our community, and they're in the hands of folks who shouldn't have them.
Speaking of this firearm, was it the same firearm as Sunday? Do you guys know? Or was it
We will know that. That's a question we have. We will know that soon. We don't know it now, so I don't want to speculate.
Do you have any other? You guys are so far seem to be relying on your account based off what you've seen from body cam footage. Do you have any other witnesses in the parking lots? Sunny day,
We're still attempting to identify additional witnesses. One of the 3 police officers on the scene did not discharge his firearm, so he's a witness. But there's the video that I watched, and I've watched a lot of body-worn camera footage in my 3 decades in policing, and particularly as a police chief. And I feel very comfortable that these police officers acted appropriately. They acted bravely in a very dangerous situation, and we're confronted by an armed gunman. And any loss of life is absolutely unfortunate, and we don't wish that on anyone. But we also know that a man armed with a firearm, when told 20-plus times to drop it by 3 uniformed Fairfax County police officers, and he fails to do so, that's a problem.
Was the Sunday incident that you're referring to related to off of Richmond Highway shooting?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Just, I know it was briefly touched upon, but can you kind of go into detail as to the procedure whenever an officer, or in this case officers, are involved in the shooting? What's the next step for them?
There's a very thorough, best in practice internal affairs investigation. There's a Major Crimes Bureau investigation as well. Both investigations occur concurrently. The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office is involved. Ultimately, the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office will determine whether any criminal charges will emanate from this incident. So we work hand in hand with them. It's a best in practice police involved shooting investigation.
And in terms of the ATF's involvement, I know that you said that your partners, is this an automatic deployment whenever an officer is involved in the shooting, the ATF comes out?
Well, we all know what each other's doing and what they're going through. So one of the reasons why Assistant Special Agent in Charge Palmer is here, one of the reasons why his boss, Special Agent in Charge Patterson, called me is because they knew a firearm was involved. They knew that a armed gunman confronted 3 uniformed Fairfax County police officers, and they're here to assist the investigation in any way they can. They are the absolute subject matter experts in any and all things firearms, and we partner all the time, not just when the TV cameras are out, but every day we partner with our federal law enforcement partners.
ATF's responsible for tracing.
We work together, but certainly ATF does that better than anybody. Thank you all.